Most production drafting will require us to create formal plots. These plots will typically include a title block that contains our company logo, client information, scale information, drawing title, and other things. To create our formal plots, we're going to use what's known as a layout. In this session, we'll set up our first layout and choose our paper size. Now I've got a drawing open on screen. If you'd like to open the same drawing, this guy's located inside the Chapter 15 folder, inside the Exercise Files directory. And this is the number 3 80s game controller drawing. Now I would like to print this drawing using our company title block. To do that, I'm going to need to set up a layout. Let me show you where we can go to find layouts. I'm going to come down to my Quick View Layouts tool right down here in the status bar, and I'm going to click. When I do, AutoCAD brings up some previews on my screen. It also brings up a control panel. Now, since we're just learning how to use this tool, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to click this push pin, and this will force the previews to stay on the screen until such time as we come over and click the X. Now let's take a look at the previews. On the left, I can see one that's called Model, and moving to the right, I can see one called Layout 1 and Layout 2. Each of these layouts represents a sheet of paper that I can use to print my drawing. To jump to a layout, I'm going to click on the preview. In fact, I can jump to any location just by clicking on the preview. If I click this guy, I go back to model space. Now these previews are kind of large. I like to have these a little bit smaller on my screen. If you would like to resize your previews, you can hold down your Control key on your keyboard and roll your mouse wheel back, and you can make these guys a little bit smaller. Every AutoCAD drawing will contain at least one layout. By default, when we create a new drawing in AutoCAD, it will have 2 layouts, Layout 1 and Layout 2. So we can see that this drawing was created from the default template. I'm going to click Layout 1 to go back to my sheet of paper. Now, if we look at the screen, I can see the piece of paper. I can also see my drawing. Now, my drawing is inside this rectangle. This rectangle is called a viewport, and I really don't want to talk about viewports right now. So let's erase this guy. I'm going to move up and click my erase icon. And then I'm going to come down and select my viewport, and I'm going to right-click. This leaves me with just the piece of paper. In addition to the paper, I can also see this dashed line. This guy represents my printable margin. Anything that falls outside that dashed line will not print. Now, the paper and the margin that we see on our screen will change depending on the printer and the paper size that we choose for our plot. Let's select a piece of paper for this layout. To do that, I'm going to come down to my preview, and I'm going to right-click. I'm going to select Page Setup Manager, and then I'm going to click Modify. Notice that the Page Setup dialog box looks very similar to our Plot dialog box. That's because it's essentially the same thing. You see, what we're doing is we're setting up our plot ahead of time. Let me pan this over a little bit. You see, the layout that we see on screen is a visible representation of our plot settings. Let me choose a printer. I'm going to come up and click the flyout, and I'm going to select Adobe PDF. Then I'm going to come down to my paper size area, and I'm going to select an 11 by 17 sheet of paper. In the plot area, I'm going to leave this set to layout. That's what I want to print. I want to print the layout. In the plot offset area, I can leave this guy alone. If we come over to the plot scale area, I'm going to leave this guy set to 1:1. You see, the paper that we'll see on screen will measure 11 by 17 inches. I will always want this to print at true size. That's one of the benefits of plotting using a layout. When I'm finished, I'm going to come down and click OK, and then I'll click Close. And the paper that we see on screen is now an 11 by 17 inch sheet of paper. And the dashed line is consistent with the printable margin for the Adobe PDF printer. Now that our layout's finished, I want to address something. Take a look at the preview. The preview still shows the geometry. It's actually showing us the condition prior to when we erased the viewport. You see, sometimes AutoCAD's a little slow keeping up with the thumbnail images down here. If I want to see a current preview, I'll just select one of the other previews and then come back. Layouts are essentially a visible display of saved plot settings. The piece of paper we see on screen is a real-life representation of our paper as it will come out of the printer. In our next session, we'll add a title block to our new layout.